Hello, Steve White, Checkboy 89 for Steve Arts 89. Well, I watched this week's episode of Star Trek Discovery, The Examples. It was okay. No real issues. It was a fairly simple story. It started off with a little bit of a revelation about the DMA. Basically, they're monitoring it, and it disappears. And it reappears 4 seconds later in a slightly different area. And they realise that it is basically man-made, that it's not natural. Now, this for me is probably the most disappointing thing, because one of the things I liked about this season was that they were facing something that was natural, not a bad guy with an evil weapon, sort of, that cliche. And now it looks like they're dealing with a bad guy, and this is his evil weapon. And now they have to find the bad guy, and it took it from something kind of interesting, I thought, to something that's kind of generic. So that was disappointing. Now, they have to go to rescue a bunch of people on a colony, and that's not that difficult. I mean, it's really just a basic rescue mission, except there is a prison, and the government, who has a very strict idea of justice, doesn't want to rescue these people. And then, his excuse is, well, the people who are in charge of the prison have left, so, just leave them there to die, basically. Well, Michael, of course, isn't happy with that. They go down to deal with it. Now, Reese actually asked to be part of the rescue mission, because as we find out later, his village was basically, or his home was destroyed by a tornado or something when he was a kid, and he was rescued by Starfleet, so he wanted to be part of a rescue mission. And I thought, oh wow, they're actually going to give him something to do off the ship. Not really. He just pops up for a moment, talk to Michael about what's happening, like an update, and then he goes away again. So he didn't really get to do much. So it was a little disappointing, but yeah. So they go down to this colony, and it's a pretty awesome scene, like the setting, the set piece basically. It's the kind of asteroid planet sort of penal colony we've sort of imagined in Star Trek before, that we've never really seen. Maybe from the air, where you sort of see this little building sort of sitting on a asteroid, but to actually be on the planet and to see, it was well done. So they go in, and basically they end up asking for asylum because they're not political prisoners, but they really haven't been served justice, of course. So they ask to basically be freed, and they offer them to come on the ship and everything. So it's fairly simple, it's fairly predictable, but then the little twist is one of the men does want to stay. He basically is the main mouthpiece for the group of prisoners, but once they get them off the planet, basically, then he says, I want to stay because I've accepted this as my fate, and if that's spending 30 years here and dying, or whether it's the anomaly destroying me, I want to die here. So Michael allows him, and the only thing that he does do is he gives her an orb, which was one of the things he stole off the person he killed, and apparently it's the history of the person, their family, and he was hoping to give it back to the person he took it from. So he gives that to Michael, and he basically just waits for them to confirm that the anomaly is actually going to destroy the asteroids, and it does. So Michael's a bit upset about that, but it was fairly well done. Now the second part of the story is, there's several parts as usual, is that Culber is falling under the stress of basically burdening himself with the stress of everyone else by being the counsellor, and he's not coping very well, and he's having some sort of survivor guilt, like why was I brought back from the dead and all this sort of stuff. So he calls up David Cronenberg, and they have a chat for like 8 minutes, and he gives him a bit of a, you're not coping, start dealing with it, start talking to people. So he talks to Stamets after he comes home from work, and they get to a slightly better place, and I always find it odd that they are sleeping in these really over-the-top Starfleet pajamas. Well, that's the end of that part. Now, the other part of the story is there's a scientist who has been basically building on Stamets's spore formula and everything, and apparently not acknowledging him, or he hasn't contacted him, he hasn't asked for his help or anything, and there's a bit of friction between the scientists. They bring him on, and he wants to create a model of the DMA to try and work out what it is and how it functions. And he's basically totally self-involved, totally focused on the one thing, doesn't care about anything else. He's rude. A lot of the cliched scientist things, Kaczynski, all these sort of people that we've seen before in Star Trek. They create the model. Saru is giving them a lot of leeway with it, but eventually, like they have to pull like power from the ship and everything, and it's a lot of drama. And they Saru puts in a kill switch, and they get down to 5% before he actually cuts it. And of course they're outraged, but he's like, "I've given you enough." They kind of work out that it, of course, needs an immense amount of power to work. So whoever is behind it is basically a god. Book feels like this guy actually knows who's behind it. He's very suspicious of him. They have a scene at the end in the bar on the ship. And I'm guessing the scientist is going to be around for a while dealing with what the actual anomaly is. Well, it's a weapon, really. It's not an anomaly. It was interesting when it was an anomaly. Now it's just a weapon. They just don't know how it works. Now, the last part of the story was there anything left? Oh, of course, the politician was not happy when they brought all the prisoners on. There's only like 6 of them for asylum. And she basically points out, you don't have a colony anymore. You're basically a refugee. You might want to hope the society you end up in is a bit more just than the one that you created. So, yeah. I don't know, overall it was an okay episode. I think the things that bothered me was the use of the S word a couple of times by the prisoners and by, I think someone else on the ship, I can't remember who it was. And I'm like, really? People on different planets from different cultures are all using the same human swear words just for the sake of it. It does rub me the wrong way because, it's not like I don't swear, but we've established that people in that century don't. So, the fact they've brought it back just to be hip and cool to have swearing in the show, it just annoys me. It's the only thing that is really annoying me about this episode. I think that's it. It was fairly simple, it was fairly well done. The visuals were good. The acting was good. The characters, everything was good. The parts of the story were a bit basic and you kind of knew exactly what was going to happen. Then there was a little bit of a twist that got interesting, thank God. But yeah, still I'm disappointed that they have made this a weapon. I felt there was something else I had to say, but I can't think of anything else. One last thing that did happen, the orb was returned to the daughter of the guy that this guy killed, the prisoner killed, because apparently she was, when they rescued everyone, they had her information, so they were able to find her, so Michael was able to give the orb to her. And it's literally like a family tree, like a holographic family tree that she was able to add herself to. So that was a nice little touch. But yeah, a fairly simple standalone episode that manages to progress the story a little bit, but not in the right direction for me. The idea that now we're dealing with an enemy with a giant weapon, it's just not interesting after the last couple of seasons and what we've had. So we'll see where it goes. They did mention Tilly. It looks like she's gone. I thought she was just going to move on to another area of Starfleet, which she would then be called on to help the ship or the crew or something. It looks like the actress just left. I haven't seen any articles about it yet, so I haven't been looking too hard though, so let me know if you've seen something. But it looks like she just left the show. I'm really not sure. But I'm going to go. Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. Sorry to break it up, but I have some really loud neighbours and I had to stop and start. Now I'm going to go watch Sex and the City. Sorry. It's not Sex and the City. It's, it's another show.